So Paddy Pimblett, I'm not a very big fan. I'll be honest. I didn't really care about him when he came up. I think honestly, I still don't really care about anything that happens or anything circulating around it. But I had to know about the whole Ariel thing, and even when that the fight on in UFC 282, you know, a lot of people think that he lost, but he was the only one that thought that he won every round, which is crazy. And so I was on YouTube today and I watched this video. Paddy Pimblett is Delusional by Jackwalterr. Go ahead and give that guy a look. And he explained, to me and everybody else, like what's this beef about, right? So let's play it, and I'll kind of cut in whenever I need to.
Ariel Helwani is an MMA reporter. He's worked for ESPN, Vox Networks, and the host of the MMA Hour. Ariel has been covering the sport since 2009, before it was really mainstream. He's kind of the OG of sorts, and he's also a reporter known to ask the hard questions, even if Dana doesn't like him. If you want me to make a separate video about how Ariel and the UFC did not get along, comment below and I'll make it. Ariel winds up not really going to the events anymore. He's hired by ESPN, and because of that had a lot of back and forth with Dana internally. Like I said, I can make a whole separate video about the whole situation, but causing Ariel to want to leave ESPN and start the MMA Hour again to be independent. Now, Ariel Helwani actually had Paddy Pimblett on the program when he was on Cage Warrior. There's tons of tweets and videos that you could find of Ariel talking to Paddy before he was in the UFC and before a lot of people even knew who he was. And when you ask Ariel why, he says, "I believed in Paddy. I believed that he would be a good fighter in the future." He wanted to give Paddy a platform. So what happened? In the beginning of the week, Paddy Pimblett does a podcast with Dana White, and like I said, Dana doesn't like Ariel already. They both shit talk Ariel Helwani.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I hate all these journalists, like Ariel Helwani in particular. Like, he loves earning money off fighters.
Yeah.
Like, get your dough out, Ariel. You know what I mean? Start paying people for these interviews. What, you make thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on. He wanted, like, when I was in New York for the MSG card last year, he wanted me to do an interview with him, and I had a paid interview that day, and he wanted me to really let go of that paid interview to do an interview with him, BT Sport, what he's getting paid for. And he said, "Oh no, that's me journalist integrity. You're not a journalist no more."
Far from it. Far.
It's kind of funny that him talking about promoters not paying their fighters when he's talking to Dana White, the person who gets the most flack for not paying his fighters well, right? And and he's right here talking to the boss man, right? Talking about Ariel Helwani, who Dana doesn't like, right, for releasing the Brock Lesnar promo before he even announced it, before the UFC announced it themselves. So yeah.
Far from it.
You're a content creator, Ariel. You're not a journalist. And he went on his MMA Hour and talked about me and my manager.
You could see in that clip that Paddy is accusing Ariel of asking Paddy to skip his interview that he was getting paid for to go on Ariel's program for free. And before we start this, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on if fighters should pay for interviews. So I've done a few interviews with fighters by now, and none of them have paid me anything, which is supposed to be normal. But honestly, I'm glad that Ariel brought awareness to this, because newer people on the scene like me, I don't really even know what is the social norm. Is it normal to pay athletes, or is it not? I'm gonna tell you why I think it's important not to. At the end of the day, I'm not saying I have the biggest platform, but being in an interview, no matter how small, how big, you are basically choosing what you want that interview to be. Yes, I'm asking questions, but you could use that to tweet it out and be like, "Hey, this is an interview where I talk about X, Y, and Z," so your fans, or you can grow fans, can learn about you, learn about your thoughts on certain events. And that's kind of how I view the interview. I want it to be a kind of like resume or some sorts that fighter could use to say, "Hey, like, check me out." And the truth is, I would say the biggest interviews I've done would be people like Sadiq Youssef, Aljamain Sterling. So
I mean, he's got a good point, right? Because if you got these lower prospect guys, up and coming guys, then how much you pay them compared to the high level athletes like Conor McGregor, top 10 fighters, top 5 fighters? How much you're gonna pay them? These guys are journalists, right? And some of them don't work for a paper or an article that makes a lot of money, right? So the only way for them to give them their worth is to promote the fighter and what they say and spread it around. That's what the journalists are for, right? And he does make a good point. Like, how much do you even pay Paddy or anybody else their worth? Because you're kind of technically giving him free promo because he's coming in, and other people might not promote him, you know. And especially of Ariel, because Ariel makes a whole bunch of views. They know about Ariel. A lot of people know about Ariel and his channel.
Sorry if I'm forgetting any other ones, but a lot of the people that I have are usually people that are in the prelims, not ranked, which is totally fine because, like I said, I'm looking at interviews for people to kind of use as a resume to introduce themselves to more people, to tweet out and say, hey, if you want to know my thoughts on certain things that are going on, let me post this and show you here. And Ariel found the idea of paying Paddy incredibly insulting because, like I said, he's had him on the program before. Ariel is a big name, too, in the MMA world. He's not just a nobody. Things might not have gone exactly how Paddy said they did. You see, Ariel put out a video on his YouTube channel basically breaking down what really happened. Ariel shows that he has recorded proof that Paddy sent him a voice message asking Ariel first if he could do any content with Ariel and did not mention about getting paid.
Because what he just said right there is an absolute bold-faced lie. It's the next message, October 27, 2021. Paddy sends me a voice note. This is what the voice note said.
Yo, the big fella. What's going down, Ariel? Just thought I'd let you know, lad, if you wanted to say hi or do anything with a man, I'll be in NYC in November. I think I'm going to be there from the 3rd to the 6th, and then I'll be coming back again on the 17th or the 18th, and then be coming back to Liverpool on the 23rd, so I'm about in New York, 2 separate occasions, just in case you want to see your mate, you know what I'm saying?
That's Paddy Pimblett sending me a voice note saying, hey, I'm going to be in New York if you want to do anything. I didn't reach out to him. I didn't ask him. He's saying, if you want to say hello or do anything together. So we go to Graham, my old friend Graham Boyle. What are the days for the next trip, I ask? Maybe I can do something with him for BT Sport on the Friday. If free, he referenced BT Sport. So now I get this message from Graham. Paddy has a lot of quote unquote, as he puts it, paid booking requests right now. If BT want to put a budget forward, we can look to get something scheduled. Otherwise, he's got to take the paid work available. You would think maybe I'm upset about this, right? Oh, this is a bad sign of things to come. No, happy for the guy because he's getting paid by Barstool. Happy for any fighter who gets paid. Happy for any fighter that's earning extra money because Lord knows they all deserve it and then some. Been around a long time, as you know. First time anyone has ever said this to me. Quite insulting, to be honest.
Paddy says, hey, talk to my manager. Ariel talks to his manager and says, I have a lot of
So there you go. Paddy hits him up first and says, hey, I can do these interviews between this date. I'll be free. And then his manager comes around and says, hey, before you do those free interviews, I'm actually going to have to charge you. So there you go. You see that? Like, Paddy kind of said one thing and then his manager said another thing. And then Ariel's saying, no, you're the one that said this first. Paddy said this, and then your manager wanted to charge me. So but in the podcast that he did it with Dana, he says that Ariel called him up.
Paid bookings for Paddy, but if BT Sports, which is the organization he works for, BT Sports is willing to put up a budget, then we can talk. Ariel found this extremely insulting, basically responding with like, hey, a simple no would have been fine, I'm not paying for an interview. And to me, I kind of interpret this as Paddy losing who he was. Fans loved him because, like I said, he had a relatable personality, he was funny, he was young, he represented just being normal, being himself. But now it seems like he's kind of changing who he is because he's with Dana White, and because Dana White hates Ariel, he is shitting on Ariel despite everything that Ariel has done for him in terms of promoting him. And now that everybody found out that Paddy was lying, it's tough. And with all that negativity, Paddy had to go into fight week. There was drama between Ilya and Paddy. Lots of people think that Paddy is ducking Ilya. That's honestly a small part of the story. So let's break down Saturday night. The greatest MMA robbery. People are saying that this is one of the greatest MMA robberies. I'm gonna break down why. So at this point, I'm assuming everybody that's watching this video has watched the fight, but if not, let me break it down for you. The fight kind of consists of similarities to Paddy's first fight between Luigi, where he had his chin up in the air and kept getting rocked by Jared Gordon. And credit to Paddy, he has a
Well, what was bad about that? What was like really what was really bad about that was that all the judges scored it for Paddy. It was in a unanimous decision, which means each judge thought that Paddy won that fight. But if you know how fights are scored and judged, and how some people win the fights. Well, even the people in the audience, the people in the arena had a weird reaction to it. Even Joe Rogan was surprised by that, and yeah. So I thought he lost, and then when he was called up, people said it was rigged. Honestly, like, they got to investigate these judges, or make them watch more tape, or explain themselves on how did they give Paddy that fight.
Phenomenal chin because he was getting beaten, and the first round was primarily Jared Gordon. I mean, Paddy withstood a lot of those hits, but Jared landed a takedown at the end of the round. Round 2, closer round. This, if you give it to Paddy, I don't necessarily blame you, but when I was scoring it live, I had Paddy down 2-0 at this point. And then we get to the third round, and Jared Gordon controls Paddy for 90% of the round, holds him against the fence, tries to get the takedown the whole round, basically like Marab and Aldo. Jesus, I forgot that fight even happened. Like, that feels like a pipe dream. You would think at the end that Jared would get the win, 29-28, best for Paddy. But all 3 judges scored the contest 29-28 in favor of Paddy. 2 judges giving him rounds 1 and 2, and the last one giving him 2 and 3. Round number 3, a round where Jared controlled 90% of that round. And you would think, okay, look, of course we're not blaming Paddy for him getting robbed. Of course not. Paddy did what he had to do, he fought, and that's that. But you think that he would acknowledge that it was a tough fight? Well, you might be wrong.
That wasn't close. You just consoled me in a third. But know what, Joe? Have you consulted me manager and see how much you're paying me for this interview? You don't think it was a close fight at all?
So you see that he tried to take a dig at Ariel and Joe. I was like, kind of like, it was cringe, because even Joe, I don't think Joe even knew what he was talking about. Paddy tried to take a dig at Ariel live on TV. No crowd reaction. No reaction from Joe. Quite embarrassing.
Not at all. I won the first 2 rounds and then coasted in the third. I knew I was 2 rounds up, so I didn't want to do nothing dangerous and risk losing the fight. I knew for a fact I won the first 2 rounds pretty easily.
As you can see, Paddy doesn't even care. He says it's not a close fight. He clearly won. And this, in my opinion, is the final straw. When you look at people like Hamzat or Connor, when you look at their hype train, the difference really was that they were performing. I mean, Hamzat had that tough fight with Gilbert Burns, but outside of that, he's done everything he's supposed to. And even the tough fight with Gilbert Burns, he showed his heart. He showed his skill. He showed that he could hang with the best, and he won the fight. I think.
So there we have it. I just want to talk about that Ariel and Paddy thing. Honestly, like, Paddy, he's kind of a dickhead sometimes, and we saw that in the beginning when they exposed some of his tweets being racist against Muslims, and then you see that a little bit with Ilya Tapora telling him to speak English, even though the guy's Georgian, can speak 3 languages. He speaks George. I don't know where they speak in Georgia, but he also speaks Spanish and English more than you, Paddy. You can barely speak English. So I just wanted to say that, because honestly, I think Paddy should change his attitude if he wants to keep losing fans. Obviously, if he goes back to London, they're still gonna cheer for him. But if he's anywhere in the United States and he keeps that same attitude and fights that same way, eventually he's going to be exposed, right? He's going to be exposed, and he's going to be climbing up the rankings, and eventually he's going to hit one of those guys like Chandler or Poirier, or even Mateus Gamrot, Drew Dober. Any of those guys will give him some trouble. So I'll leave it there, guys. Let me know. Comment down below. See you guys next time. Laters.